All right, welcome back to The Real Story. Before we get to Ray Lopez, this is Texas Governor Abbott on Maria Bartiromo this morning.
Have you seen a change? Tell us what has happened since President Trump was sworn in as our 47th president.
Maria, I don't think there's ever been a more sudden and swift change in any government operation than under President Trump when he took the oath of office. I would say overnight, but on the first hour of his tenure as president, we saw the change where there were military sent to the border. The military were blocking people from crossing the border illegally. The numbers of people who crossed on the 19th of January dropped dramatically on the 20th of January. They have continued to drop, and every single day, President Trump, working with Tom Homan, they've been deporting people to the countries they came from. But to show how Texas is a partner in all this process, on the hour that President Trump took office, Texas was deploying more buoys in the Rio Grande to deter and deny illegal entry into the country. The change, Maria, is this. We suddenly now have a commander-in-chief who cares about national security, who cares about securing the border, who's going to enforce the law. And importantly, he has a governor in a state in Texas that will be a partner with the Trump administration. We will assist in the arrest, the detention, and the deportation of people coming across the border illegally.
Well, that sounds like common sense to me. And that's exactly what Donald Trump said when he addressed the World Economic Forum. He told the audience, what the world just witnessed in the last 72 hours is nothing less than a revolution of common sense. Well, I know somebody who's in Chicago who's got a lot of common sense. That's Ray Lopez. He's the Chicago Alderman for the 15th Ward. He fully supports law and order and has been an outspoken critic of the insane policies that oppose such. He's also led the opposition to the property tax increase, and he wants ShotSpotter back, and rightly so. He's a frequent guest on conservative shows, even though he's a Democrat, and we welcome him right now. Ray, you were worried that we wouldn't have anything to talk about tonight.
Jeannie, good evening. Yeah, who would have thought, right? And the city of Chicago would be bringing law and order back like it was going out of style.
Well, honestly, isn't that what's actually going on? I mean, he's not gone after, he's not looking for collateral arrests for just illegals. He's really looking after getting rid of gangbangers. And I was reading from an NBC5 report. There are a lot of targets, a lot of teams looking. I can tell you last time I looked at the board, I think we got 6 people who are serious sex offenders. We got at least 2 to 3 TDA gang members, 2 other gangs who were convicted of murder, homicide, aggravated sexual battery, aggravated sexual assault, some bad guys. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. It really must be a sad day for the teachers union and all the white hyper progressives out there who thought that they were going to be able to create these school scene raids that never materialized, and having to read the list of individuals who have so far been arrested, all of these very dangerous individuals whom the city council and the mayor said were worth protecting. Watching them go, watching Tom Homan himself on the street as they're arresting child sexual predators is something that I don't think any of us would have fathomed seeing in any of our lifetimes, not least of which in the last 4 years. But here we are having these individuals, and let's not forget, Tom Homan last week said that there are up to nearly 2,000 targets like this in the city of Chicago right now. 2,000. So they've got plenty of work to go. And I would only hope that my colleagues and the mayor, but more so my colleagues, wake up and do what their residents want them to do, which is to work with this administration and get these individuals out of our cities.
Well, it seems, though, that the administration is working opposite of that. And even Governor Pritzker, his Illinois Department of Corrections, put out a missive to IDOC essentially saying, we're going to comply with the Trust Act and we're going to release criminal illegals onto the street. We're not going to work with ICE. I mean, what are you telling the sheriff? Is there any cooperation with Toni Preckwinkle and her people and the new state's attorney in actually working with Tom Homan and not opposing him?
I think so far I'm the only one who's actually come out saying that we should be working with the administration. I think Preckwinkle and Johnson are both in lockstep under no circumstances are they going to do anything that gets rid of criminals in Cook County or the city of Chicago. I think Governor Pritzker is finally slowly coming closer to the center, saying criminals should be deported, but therein he always puts the caveat that he's going to stand in the way just to make sure, because he has to stick his 2 cents in. And I, oddly enough, have not heard anything from the Cook County State's Attorney, Eileen O'Neill Burke, who would be, I would assume, the most logical choice to inform ICE if she's able to convict somebody who's undocumented or has temporary protective status from with a dangerous crime. You would think that she'd be able to do that, and she's been relatively silent on the matter. But at the end of the day, what I know is this. If we allow our police officers to inform ICE when we have a priority target arrested in the city of Chicago, that will go a long way to speeding up their deportation, as well as getting some of these individuals who don't belong in the city of Chicago out of here quicker.
Well, where'd they get their list? I mean, they didn't just come up with this list in 6 days, really 5 days. They had this list. They actually probably had addresses for these people. Right?
I'm more than certain that they've had all of this information and compiled as much as they could as these individuals were crossing over the border over the last 4 years. Because so far, by the looks of it, we're not talking about long-term undocumented in Little Village, the way that the governor keeps referring to. We're not talking about, our grandmas and grandpas in Pilsen like everyone keeps pretending. We're talking about the migrant asylum seekers who came over, who could be from Venezuela, could be from Iran, could be from Africa, could be from a whole host of countries that don't necessarily like us at the moment, that are here to do bad things.
But Ray, let's just dig into this a little bit. The point here is that this was a known list. They didn't just accumulate these names in 5 days and decide to show up Sunday morning in Chicago. They knew this list. They knew where they lived. And if they knew, then your locals knew, the state knew, a lot of people knew, Preckwinkle knew, the state's attorney knew, the chief judge knew. Everybody knew who these people were, and until Trump takes office, and sends Homan in there, they're just going to let these people suck off the taxpayer and go about their lives, even though they're criminals, illegals.
And let's go one further.
Okay.
Even if you assume that locally we didn't know, that means federally.
I don't believe it, but
when they were sending them here.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Federally, they could have sent him here. You're right. Good point.
From Biden, the Biden administration on down, they knew what they were sending to the city of Chicago. They knew what they were doing when they were intentionally telling people that were falsely claiming asylum, "Oh, go to Chicago. Your court date in 8 years." Mm-hmm. They know what they were doing. None of that was by accident. And the fact that everyone wants to pretend like that isn't the case makes me wonder just how culpable everyone else is in that mission to maintain having criminals here in our city.
Yeah, well, there was a bit of a dust up. And, I was reading, a lot of people have tweeted this out. So many people have talked about it. It's been all over the news. Matt Finn basically said, Border Czar Homan tells Fox that Illinois Governor Pritzker is a liar for repeating false information that ICE agents visited Chicago school. Homan says in this instance, Pritzker spread fear in a stone-cold lie. Let's kind of talk about that. I mean, the schools apparently can't tell the difference between a Secret Service agent and an ICE agent.
Well, reading is fundamental, clearly.
I mean, that's what you're looking at. So basically, Secret Service agents show up in a Hispanic school, largely Hispanic school, and they say, "Hey, look, we're here to investigate some sort of threat against the president." And these guys assumed that they were ICE agents, refused to let them in, didn't want to look at their paperwork, didn't care, and then everybody gets their panties in a knot and starts reporting that ICE has showed up to an elementary school, which is 100% false.
And let's not forget that they also, in that time frame of not figuring out who exactly was standing in front of them by reading their business card, chose to instead call every community advocate, every advocacy group that's funded by the city, and inform an entire media circus to allow Stacey Davis Gates to show up and stand before a full deck of cameras to spread information that was 100% incorrect in a predominantly immigrant community on the Southwest side. Then not just Pritzker, but the mayor, Chuy Garcia, and a whole host of other elected officials all jumped on the misinformation bandwagon yesterday, issuing no retractions, no apologies to the community, which they completely traumatized, thinking that immigration was there. And then you had many individuals, my favorite white hyper-progressive liberals, saying, well, it shouldn't matter anyway, whether it was ICE or Secret Service. You know, the federal government's not welcome to come into our schools. One, it does matter because the Secret Service is investigating claims against threats against the president, who, by the way, has had 2 assassination attempts even before taking office. Yeah. And B, you are minimizing what an undocumented person in an immigrant community sees when you tell them that it's ICE in front of their children at their school.
I heard that some parents were afraid to pick up their children. It's terrible. Hey, Ray, you know what? I always need to schedule more time with you. But I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing with us. I really appreciate you. Ray Lopez, Alderman, 15th Ward. We'll be right back. You're welcome. We'll be right back. We got Tom Wolf from the Thomas More Society about those pro-life pardons that Trump issued.